He had a mechanical and electrical, kind of a compound emergency, which is super rare, that was initiated by a gun run and the troops in contact, danger close. So it's me, alone and unafraid, for the rest of this. And so I'm doing reattacks. I'm getting updates. They are moving. They're trying to break contact. And so I end up doing 5 or 6 by myself. Nobody's covering strafe runs to try to get these guys to be able to move south and break contact. I was so fired up that I get to go fly a jet again one more time.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served Warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Vince Snapper Sherer is a retired Air Force A-10 Thunderbolt Warthog fighter pilot. Over a 20-year career, he flew 300 combat missions and logged 1,300 combat flight hours in the A-10 and MC-12 across 4 deployments to Afghanistan. Vince supported troops in contact at danger close range, at times without a wingman, over a decade of evolving combat and technological change. He's the personification of the A-10 pilot and gives an inside look at what combat felt like from the cockpit. Enjoy. Hey, Vince, thank you for taking the time to share your story.
Yeah, good to be here, Ryan. Thank you.
So I want to get into how you found your way to the Air Force, but just to start out here, I'm curious what your call sign was and how you got it.
Okay. Yeah, that's usually kind of secret information that you got to go to a bar and have a couple beers to tell about. But, you know, I'm retired. I can kind of give you a peek behind the curtain a little bit, I guess. So I go by Snapper, and I think there are a few of those out there in the Air Force. Kind of relating to, for some reason, somebody glommed on to the idea that I was a sensitive new age pilot, a SNAP. So that's an acronym for sensitive new age pilot, SNAP. And my last name has 2 ERs on it. So ER, SHERER. They just put an extra ER on the end of SNAP. There's Snapper. And that's the first time I've told a concise, true story of the origin of my call sign. There's so many other awesome stories that I could tell. They're lies. They're kind of more fun, but hey.
That's good. I mean, it's 2 pilots talking, so at least half of what we say will be true, I'm sure. What is a sensitive new age pilot? And if it's too risque for this,
no,
just say so.
Okay, so I went through pilot training in 2002, 2003. This is when YouTube's kind of blossoming, becoming a thing. People are starting to produce videos. So this is one of the first produced videos that is kind of fighter pilot centric. And it was the F-16 instructors at their follow-on training unit. So the FTU teaching the new F-16 guys. And it's the instructors going, look at these new fucking guys coming in here. Now, I can curse, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So these new fucking guys coming in here, and they're all like sniffing the flowers and stuff. They're carrying briefcases and umbrellas and shit to work. What is this sensitive new age bullshit going on? So it was a video that was produced. You can probably find it. Look up sensitive new age pilot, and you'll see some F-16 stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
So that was kind of a recent thing that had come out when it was my naming time. You know, so that was within the lexicon of the fighter pilot community at that point was the SNAP.
Very cool. All right, that's interesting. I've never heard that, so I'm going to check out the video because I want to see this.
And so you'll have to like reference some other folks that have flown with me to realize if the name is apt or not. Am I a sensitive new age guy?
I feel like you're not a sensitive new age guy. Like that's my initial take. So let's go back to kind of before you joined the Air Force.
Okay.
The guys that I flew with often had this moment in time where they're like, oh my God, I want to fly from a young age. Maybe they saw an aircraft somewhere, whatever it was, movie. Yeah. What was like the spark for you to fly?
Okay. I think it's kind of a couple of phases. So growing up, there was no military background really in my family. I didn't get brought up with, the knowledge of the officer corps or anything like that. So it came up through the idea that this would be cool and kind of picture it. We're we're kind of a poor family living in Portland, Oregon. My brother's room is down in the unfinished basement in this small house, like a built in 1916 house. It's dark, no windows, and we've got this like garage sale equipment of stereo equipment. We got like a 24-inch screen and a VCR, and we're playing Top Gun down there. And he is really rushing to get accepted to the Air Force Academy, get recruited for wrestling. He was actually recruited for wrestling and goes to the Air Force Academy. And so we loved the movie, and we'd always crank it up on these gigantic speakers and just totally blow the house up with the opening scene, fighter jets going off the carrier and getting all fired up. We're just yelling down there. So that got us fired up, thinking that this is freaking cool, man. We want to do that. But we had no inkling that we could do it. It was just like this pipe dream, you know. And then luckily he and I were so the next phase is we do well in athletics in high school. And so we have this opportunity. My mom's supporting us, and we end up getting to be accepted, both of us. He's 2 years ahead of me. He gets recruited for wrestling. I get recruited for football and have to do
at the academy.
Yeah, Air Force Academy. So I wanted to play football, and that kind of melded into my primary goal of playing Division I football. And wow, I can fly jets on the side. And then when I get there, it's like, okay, football is putting me at risk for not being able to fly because I'm getting hurt so much. So long story short is we didn't think we could do it. We thought it was freaking awesome. Flying jets would be cool. We go to air shows. We watch Top Gun in this little basement. And boom, we are accepted to the Air Force Academy. And my brother goes and becomes a badass wrestler at the academy. I played football for a few years, but I quit. I'm getting hurt and decided to go do the pilot thing.
Oh, very cool. Did he go on to fly as well?
Well, he started it, but that's kind of one of the tragic things in my life that really shaped and allowed me to get to where I'm at is he got in a motorcycle accident right after track select at undergraduate pilot training, and was in a coma for like 6 months, brain damage, permanent brain damage, and now still 20-something years later requires a little bit supervisory care. So that shifted my mindset to more of a nonchalant, everything has been kind of happening really easily, really well. Very lucky to have such athletic genetics. And then it gets real. And if I had not been woke up and things didn't get real for me, I probably would not have the amount of motivation and dedication to flying fighters and flying what I wanted, the A-10, and getting that as my first choice. Had the accident not happened, I would have been more distracted, more nonchalant. So in a way, the tragedy, you got to kind of look at the yin and yang of it. It shaped me and made me who I am, and probably put me on the path to becoming a retired A-10 guy. Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
I was a sophomore at the Air Force Academy when I got a phone call. I guess it doesn't matter. I was in a girlfriend's room on a Saturday night, and I almost got kicked out of the academy because I was in a girlfriend's room that night when they found me. And but I had to make a phone call that night to my mom and say, hey, he's in intensive care. And so next day, go out to Mississippi, and we have to figure out what's next. It's pretty rough. It's tough.
Wow. Was it pretty obviously a huge event, but did it change like overnight your thinking, kind of the way you described the path it set you on?
Yes, absolutely. I was partying and stuff, and having fun, and again, nonchalant. Things are coming easy, and it was a wake up. It was like, okay, I didn't touch any beer for 3 years. Nothing.
Jeez.
After that.
Yeah. And so it really did change.
Laser focus. He was my best friend. We would go out and we wouldn't even have to talk. We could just look at each other. And we'd speak volumes just by body language. And we'd ride dirt bikes together. We'd go camping all the time. We were just like these two big, massive hulks of men, He was a WAC champion wrestler out there. He had 26-inch arms and, like 5'10". He was probably 230, solid muscle.
Jesus.
And I was 6'1", 245, playing football. And then this happens. You're not invincible. You got to wake up. You got to live your life responsibly and not put yourself in scenarios that could get you hurt. So,
yeah, Jesus. Yeah. All right. So you're in the basement, you're watching Top Gun.
Yep.
Like, this is the thing. Why not go in the Navy and be flying off a carrier?
So first of all, brother was accepted to the Air Force Academy.
Right.
I'm like, we should go hang out together.
Yeah.
And second, I thought Air Force was a little bit cooler than Navy. I mean, I like the planes a little better. It was kind of a naive idea. It was because the airplanes looked cooler, and I knew a little bit more about it. Even though I'd watched Top Gun, Navy I didn't want to go on boats. I didn't want to be. I thought the Air Force looked cooler. I liked the F-16. I liked the F-15. We still had freaking F-111s and F-117s back then.
Mm-hmm. If it had not been for your brother, would you have found your way to the Air Force still, you think?
I think so, because of football. At that point in my life, coming up through high school, Division I, playing football was like my primary goal. I mean, again, a young kid, naive primary goal. That's all I can see is I want to go play football for Division I. So that's my big goal that I never really accomplished. I was on the team. I traveled with the team, but I never stepped foot on a varsity down playing Air Force Academy football. I played a bunch of JV and all that stuff, but I never got to go play on the field and at the D1 varsity level.
It's no joke getting onto a D1 team, though. So, I mean, I hear you. All right. So I did ROTC. So I was not an academy cadet, but I do know like how competitive it was to get the branch you wanted in the Army just through ROTC. Then if you get, you get into flight school, that's a whole process. I would love to hear about what that's like in the Air Force. So when you're at the academy, how competitive is it to get into flying? And then is there a delineation between jets and the other type of flying? And then once you're into flight school, I'd love to hear about that process.
Yeah, I'll talk through the process a little bit. It might surprise you that it is dependent on the availability of pilot slots and the culture within the cadet ranks as to how competitive it will be to get a pilot slot upon graduation. First of all, you have to be pilot qualified. It used to be early on that you had to be pilot qualified to get accepted to the Air Force Academy. Kind of seems like it makes sense, right? You got to have the eyes, you got to have the physical to go fly. That's not the case anymore. So I think the statistics are moving to less than 50% of the academy acceptees, the guys that are at the academy now, guys and gals, are actually pilot qualified in the first place. So that narrows the pool from about 1,000 cadets per class to about 500 that are pilot qualified. And then we went through in the recent years a lowering of the available pilot slots to go to training because of pipeline blockages and slowing down and that type of thing. So it varies wildly year to year on how competitive it is to get a pilot slot on graduating from the Air Force Academy. There are years that less than half the people that want it get it, and there are years that they can't fill all the slots, and they're making anyone that is pilot qualified go to flying, even if they don't want to. So the other piece of that is we have a lot of people now through the culture that realize that, our job is busy. Guys are going to be the pace of work as a pilot, regardless of heavies or fighters, is going to be fast. It's going to be, you're deployed a lot. If you're not into that, if you want to be, home a lot, then your choice logically would not be to go to the flying pilot pipeline. So the decisions at the cadet level are more these days going to, I don't want to be a pilot. So they have to say, nope, you're going to go fly. So then you get a pilot slot and you have to go through the undergraduate, specialized undergraduate pilot training construct, which is changing right now. There's a lot of movement going on. There's UPT 2.0 going on at Randolph Air Force Base right now. They're trying to reduced the timeline of training required to get a full up round sent to a unit to go participate. But when I went through, it was specialized undergraduate pilot training, which was 3 phases.
Okay.
Phase 1 is, so you graduate the academy, you get your acceptance, you're pilot qualified, and you get a slot. Okay, so you made the cut first time.
And this is everybody who's going to be a pilot is starting at the same level.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Either ROTC or there's a couple different tracks that go into being a pilot in the Air Force. I got hired into a guard unit. Idaho National Guard has A-10 unit up there in Boise. They go interview a dude off the street, Joey Bag of Donuts, delivering pizzas, just graduated from college and is trying to get hired. He gets hired. They say, we like you. We want you to be an A-10 pilot for us. They give him a pilot slot. He goes and he knows that he has to succeed all the way through the 3 phases and not fail out to become that A-10 pilot at the Air National Guard unit. Guess what? The recruiters at the Air Force Academy didn't tell me that shit existed.
You just would have done that.
They're like, if you want to fly, you got to go to the academy, and here's how you do it. So the way through the academy is you get thrown into a general pilot position, not like this National Guard thing where you know what you're going to fly if you can make it through.
Yep.
You go through and you go, maybe you're going to make it through, and let's see what you get. Nobody knows. So first phase, academics, you got to study, learn, be able to understand 3 dimensions, understand the rules and regulations of aviation, and pass tests and do well enough to go to phase 2, which is your first flying phase. When I went through, it was T-37s, and now it's T-6s as the primary trainer. It's about 6 months long there. You learn how to fly a little bit, and then the top players out of that group go to the next specialized break. So the specialized break after phase 2, which is T6s, turns into, when I went through, it was 4 tracks. There was T1s, which is like a corporate jet trainer for heavies. Those folks would go to C-17s, C-5s, those type of things. There was a T-44 for C-130s. So that was a specialized track for C-130 pilots. There was a UH-1 for helicopter pilots. And then there was the T-38 for fighter bomber pilots. So I selected T-38s and then, made my next cut. So the goal as I graduate is I want to fly A-10s. I'm going to do it for my brother. I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to stay focused. So I was able to,
at the end of phase 2, Vince, is the decision point for these 4 forks in the road, essentially.
Yep, exactly.
How competitive is that phase 2, like at the end, to figure out which track you get?
It's brutal, man. There is a freaking 6-inch long math equation for the flight commanders for the undergraduate pilot training students to develop the order of merit. So every grade you got on any flight, all your test scores, and then you get a 10%. My flight commander thinks this of me, which gives me lots of scores or not. So It's 360-degree look at you, and you're getting graded. So everybody gets put on the order of merit. Then the Air Force gives you, this is how many slots we have for each of these 4 tracks. Now people are going to send a dream sheet and say, this is my top, second, third, and fourth choice. And so you probably get 25% of the people getting their first choice, and then the people that didn't do well enough that want to go fighters. In my era, everybody wanted to go fighters. It was like it was fights in the hallway to go to fighters. And then I came back to being an instructor at phase 2 in T6s, and people were like, "I'm going to T1s. I don't want to." Nobody wanted to go to T38s.
Wow!
It was perceived as such a harder way to go that. It was just a different motivation. There wasn't anything that was, there's guys that were still fired up and wanted to be an attack pilot and go kill people and blow shit up. But most people just wanted to go see the world and take their briefcase under their C5 and go stop in Spain for the weekend.
Is that the snap? I feel like that is the sense of the new age pilot.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Precisely. So anyways, then you go to So that's another big cut. You've made the cut through your competition with your peers to get to T-38s, at least in my class.
Yeah.
Made it. Okay, next thing is go through T-38s, which they're ratcheting up the professionalism, the expectations, the accountability for not being good at flying, and people get washed out. People are getting cut. People aren't making it. And we're like, okay, you're going to have to go do something other than pilot in the Air Force.
Wait, they don't wash you out into like the T1s or the T44s. They wash you out.
Some are just gone.
Wow.
Like if you ratchet this heat up on a kid and he breaks and he starts lying about what he did in the airplane, he's gone. He's done. He's not flying.
Yeah.
So we find those type of things. We find weaknesses with people and we weed them out. So then you go through and then you have assignment night. That is the big one. So, holy crap, you could go from T-38s. I'll narrow it down to T-38s now for my experience. You go F-15s, F-16s. You can go to first assignment instructor pilot, which is FATE. So T-38s or T-6s. You could go to, they were just starting F-22 drops when I was going through. So, I ended up getting the one A-10 in my assignment night, and my flight commander told me, "Hey, dude, you were going to be an F-16 guy until 30 minutes prior to us hit and go on your drop night." I did a backdoor deal, talked to guys on the phone, and we switched it up to get you the A-10. So I got my first choice. Man, I'm not saying this to be bragging or whatever. I've been so lucky. I mean, I was nose to grindstone. I was focused, laser focused, and dedicated to getting this. And lucky all the way through my Air Force career to get first or second choice, all the way through for airplanes and assignments. So I couldn't have done it better. I couldn't have planned it better. And
how different would your life have been if you had done one phone call kind of like changed the trajectory?
It totally did. Yeah, it would have been completely different. I mean, who knows? The culture's a little bit different. So the Hawg guys are kind of like the big meatheads, that are all about the dudes on the ground and support guys on the ground. And we always make fun of the F-16 guys like they're the BMW driving frosted tip. I cross my hair motherfuckers. They're all prima donnas, And then you got the F-15C drivers that are all pointing with their elbows and measuring dicks and always so super competitive that they're all assholes. And then you got Strike Eagle guys that are kind of like Hawg guys, but they're all fucking weird because you got Wizzos. And so, yeah, it would have been a very different look probably if I went Vipers.
Yeah. That was a question I was going to ask that you just did, because at least in the Army aviation community, like you have the same competitive nature and like, here are all the airframes available. Here's the OML. All right. Number one, choose. Number two, choose. But there's still like personalities with airframes that seem to match up pretty nicely. And I assume that the same exists in the Air Force.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. How long from that time when you go to like phase one till you get assigned to Hogs, for instance, how long is that?
That's a year.
They do that in a year?
Yeah.
Wow. That's faster than I thought.
Well, okay. I did 6 months before that getting the private pilot's license.
Okay.
I waited 6 months after that to get to the next cut, which is Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. So that's another 3 to 4 month course where they go, okay, now we're going to introduce you to air-to-air fighting, shooting my watch stuff, and some air-to-ground dropping bombs and doing strafe runs. And if you can't handle it going 500 knots, then there's another cut. Go do something else.
Wow.
I'll send you to like a heavy unit because you can't go that fast. Your brain doesn't work fast enough to go that fast.
And so that's after you got A-10s.
Yeah.
Like that's the training pipeline from there.
Yep. So I got assignment night. I get A-10s. I wait 2 months at Columbus in a break-in training program. I get maybe 1 or 2 flights at Columbus waiting for a training slot at Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals in Sheppard, Texas. I go to Sheppard, and those are the worst months of my Air Force career.
Why?
The instructors, the 3 primary methods of instruction from the instructors there were the old school 1969 to 1975 fear, ridicule, and sarcasm. Those are the 3 primary means. So it's not necessarily an enjoyable process to go through as a student. It will harden you. It will get you a little bit of a perspective.
Yeah.
And it will establish a level of capability and professionalism, because you're just going to get the shit knocked out of you every time you show up to fly. If you have something wrong, it's called out, and you're basically belittled and talked shit to until it gets better. It's not as much like that anymore. We've transitioned a lot away from fear, ridicule, and sarcasm. We can do things better and more efficient, and we're trying to turn that corner. But I think that era was still pretty rough. It was not fun.
And that was in A-10 training.
No, this is regardless of what you're going to. You go to a fighter, you got to go to Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. So it's a 3 to 4 month kick in the balls.
Yeah.
To weed more people out so that you don't waste time at the $30,000 an hour airframes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're still doing this in T-38s, and you're trying to get rid of the weak swimmers and cut some more so that you don't lose assets, time in the A-10 or F-16 squadron.
God.
So there's a few different flights that you have to fly depending on where you're going to. An F-15 guy is going to have more air-to-air. F-15C guy is going to have more air-to-air flights in his IFF program than an A-10 guy is going to have, because I got to learn air-to-ground. The F-15C guy doesn't even want to look at an air-to-ground sortie. It's wasted space in his brain. He's knocking penguins off. He's never going to get back. So.
Yep. Wow. Okay, so you get through that. At the end, is it duty location night? Is that kind of like the final thing?
That's what you get an assignment at undergraduate pilot training. I got assigned A-10s to Davis-Monthan. Now I've got to pass IFF to actually go there.
Got it.
Did it, passed it. Got through it. Fucking hated it.
So like from the time you're young, you're looking for A-10s. You finally get it. The first time you sit in there, like, what did it feel like for you?
Oh man. Okay. The first flight, I'll go right to the first flight.
And sorry, Vince, I want to hear this. Like, you're solo in the cockpit, right? Like there's
there's nobody helping you.
Big ass tank of a plane going 400 knots.
The steps behind me, you see here? I'm walking up 5 steps to get into the cockpit. It's 15-foot drop from the canopy. That's a big airplane.
No one's with you. So this is solo. Like
there are no 2-seaters that are in operation. Yep, you're on your own.
I can't wait to hear this.
So we do our academics, we do some sims, we know how to start it. We've read the operations limits. We know how to not kill ourselves generally. But holy crap, there's a lot of stuff to turn on. And when you go out there and you're doing it for the first time, you better have your shit together. And this kind of translates to the wartime stories too. The better your preparation, the less your anxiety. It's 100% direct correlation. So, and I'm always very hard on myself, and this kind of has been a theme throughout my life, that if I recognize a point where I could have done more or spent more time reading or done something like this, then I feel it in my brain. So I got super anxiety ridden as I'm walking out to the airplane for the first time. I'm like, man, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I could have studied a little more here. And I'm introducing all this second guessing BS into my brain. So I'm getting really nervous, man. We're stepping out there and it's hot. It's Tucson, Arizona. Probably 100 and some degrees. I've already lost 6 pounds of sweat before we even get to the airplane. We get out there and those switches are hot enough to burn your hands if you're not wearing gloves under the Tucson sun. So add that to the mix. You're just drenched in sweat. I'm like hyperventilating. I'm shaking. My heart's beating a million miles a minute. I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to go fly this fucking thing. This is awesome. I'm scared. Let's do it. So when I get that way, at least, I have to go back on training. And the training is I'm finger dragging a checklist. And I'm like I took probably 12 minutes longer than I needed to on ground ops, because I'm I'm going finger dragging one step at a time on a checklist because I'm so freaking nervous and I don't want to screw this thing up.
Yep.
I just remember feeling flushed. I mean, I feel like everything's overheated. I'm shaky. We get the thing started, and as soon as I taxi out, I'm like getting a feel for how it taxis. I get to the EOR, and I realize that there's a whole nother level of anxiety that I haven't reached yet as I'm sitting there getting armed up and ready to take off. Like, fuck, this is real deal Holyfield now, man. It's like, we're about to get airborne. And guess what happens when you're airborne? You got two choices. You either punch out of the thing or you got to land it.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, luckily, went through the training mission and no issues. But the inner turmoil and anxiety had a massive payoff when I landed, touchdown, taxi back, shut down, walk away from the airplane and go debrief and pass the ride. Yeah. Everything's good to go. I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe I just did that.
It was what you were hoping for, like all that time. Then,
absolutely.
Like, all the time. So I don't know much about the T-38, like how fast it goes, but was the A-10 your first experience going, like feeling that type of power, I guess?
I think that, so they're a different type of power. A T-38 is, it used to hold time to climb and speed records in the 50s, in the 60s. Mm. So the T-38 is a rocket. It's like a dart. It's a real sleek twin engine, afterburning, supersonic jet. The Hawg is a big, ugly Hershey bar wing, slow, powerful, weapons laden, bad motherfucker. So it's totally different.
Got it.
And so the flying part, landing a T-38 it's the second hardest airplane to land in the Air Force inventory, and we send our students through it. It's tough to land. The margins are super thin. A lot of people have died in training in the T-38 in the takeoff and landing phase.
What's the hardest to land?
U-2 spy plane.
Okay.
They have a Camaro chasing it, saying you're 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot, touchdown. I mean, Jesus! That much support to land that thing. So, you got a really thin window of airspeed and approach angle for the U-2. Same thing. You're going anywhere from 150 to 170 knots. Approaching in a T-38 because there's no wings. You have to go really fast. And it's got no brakes, so your margins are very, very thin. The A-10, on the other hand, it's this big, massive beast of firepower that's built to go kill shit. But when you're approaching it is so forgiving. It's so easy to fly. It's like a big truck. Yeah. Like if you wanted to compare it, it's like an old 1978 box Chevy pickup truck with a 3-speed manual on the floor. It's like, it's super forgiving. You can bump into stuff, no big deal, whatever. And then you've got like a T-38 would be like a no traction control Dodge Viper. It's like, it'll get ahead of you. You can fuck up real easy, you know. So those would be the comparisons.
How did you do check rides in a single seat aircraft?
You got a guy chasing you, 2 airplanes.
No way.
There are things that they cannot assess. Where are your switches? That's one of the beauties of a single seat airplane. I do what the fuck I want with my switches. I figure out what anybody else can glean from what's going on with my airplane. I make sure I got those things dialed. But if I don't push the button and I'm not navigating directly to this point, I'm looking on the ground and using my eyeballs to go where I want to go. He doesn't need to know that.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So it's a little forgiving then.
Yeah.
Hey, so I think you and I might be around the same age, Vince. Where were you at 9/11? Were you a junior or senior?
I was casual status, Air Force Academy, working as, check this out, the assistant to the women's tennis coach at the Air Force Academy.
Stop.
Handing out like tank tops and stuff to the girls that are going on. I don't know. It was ridiculous. I was also teaching classes. I was doing boxing, unarmed combat, judo, being a stand-in instructor, helping wrestle around with the kids and stuff like that.
What year was that? Like, were you done with school and waiting to start?
Yep. I was done with Air Force Academy, and I had already graduated, and I was providing help with the athletic department. And I I showed up to work to the athletic department on September 11th, and walked into the office, and the TV was on with the first tower on fire. And as I was there, like 5 minutes later, the second airplane hit. And the whole Air Force career as an active duty commissioned officer was post 9/11 from that point.
Yeah. So I was in a similar boat, not with the women's tennis team. However, I do recall, I wonder if you felt the same way, thinking like, oh my God, all right, I'm going to go to flight school. This just happened. Flight school is so long. I'm going to miss this war. How did you rationalize that? Because you had a couple of years in front of you.
Yeah. I was fired up. I was able to kind of redouble my focus that I had gained from my brother's accident, and ensure that I can't change the path, and I'm going to do the best I can to do my very best within the path I have ahead of me. And I felt lucky that my timing was that it was, because I could see the cadets that were sitting, up to 4 or 5 years, if they're doing prep school stuff, before they're going to be able to do anything but go to school. And I felt that every single day at the Air Force Academy. I thought, I am sitting here wasting my time. I hated it. Like, I'm just spinning my wheels here. This is stupid. Yeah. I need to get out of here. And so I was grateful to have been graduated and that I had a pilot training slot awaiting me. It was on the books. It was ready to go. So
yeah. Okay. Awesome. Hey, let's jump to combat then. Take me to your first combat flight. Where are you at? What year are we talking? Talk me through that first time in combat.
All right. So, first combat mission, September 2005. So it took me that long to get a combat rotation from graduating in 2001 from the academy, going through all the pilot training hoops, and getting my first deployment. I was interestingly led by my squadron commander, Martha McSally, now Senator Martha McSally from Arizona. She was a good commander. We'll go back to my experience here. Was the emotions I described on doing my first flight, it was similar, but it was way more unknown. I had a little bit of fear of the unknown on, hey, am I going to get shot at? Is there going to be, am I going to be seeing tracer fires and battles down in the battlefield? I just don't know. I'm completely naive and ignorant to what's going to happen. So that made me real nervous. And to add to it, we were operating with the A-10A model aircraft at the time, and we had retrofitted a Lightning Gen 2 targeting pod on it and had to do some trickery with switches since we didn't have it designed in the airplane in the first place. So we're using a little monochromatic green screen, 4-inch square display for our video feed from the targeting pod. And we've got to do some like up, down, left, right, BA select start shit to make this targeting pod do stuff. Yep. So it's prone to pilot error and mistakes. And when I get to a later combat story, I'll tell you why that is important. But so I've got a little bit of worry about being able to implement the targeting pod systems efficiently and effectively in short notice. There's been a lot of talk. We've been doing a lot of talking and practicing for years now, and now it's game time. So first time stepping on the field in the real deal game is an emotional experience. So I think my first sortie, as it got dark at night, I see some flashes going off down south, and I'm like, hey man, I get on the radio with my flight lead, because I'm a wingman, I'm a young guy. Hey, look, there's some shooting down south. He's like, dude, take a breath, relax. That's lightning. That's clouds. So I'm like, okay. all right, I can relax a little bit. So,
were you guys in Afghanistan?
Yeah. So Bagram, my experience is 4 combat deployments to Bagram, Afghanistan. I lived there for over 2 years, and I've got 299 combat missions and 1 combat support mission for a total of 300.
Jeez. How many hours does that equate to for combat time for an A-10 pilot?
It's just under 1,300 hours. So, so three of those deployments were A-10s, and one of them was MC-12s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for that first flight, it was a night flight?
It was day-night.
Day-night, okay.
Got day, land night.
And what is a standard load you guys would carry? I'm sure it varied, but like what was your weapons load in a normal situation?
I can't remember if this is my old. Yeah, I think this is.
Oh, yeah.
See if this will come through.
There you go. Yep.
Here is an A-10, and it's a targeting pod. Okay. This is not going to work with this background.
No, I got you.
So we got a targeting pod. We got a Mark 80. Let's see, Mark 82. No, that's got a GBU 38. So it's a 500-pounder with a GPS guidance kit on it. I think this is a later deployment, Scal. I think we had 2 or 4 GBU-12s, which is laser guided. That's these guys. Yeah. Yep. So laser guided GBU-12. Yeah, this is a later Scal. We didn't have a lot of GBU-38s in 2005. We had the GBU-12s and GBU-10s. So the 2,000-pounders and the 500-pounders for precision guided, and we had some dumb bombs too, Mark 82s, if I remember right. Also, we had illumination rockets. We had Lu-2s or flares. So you could do Willie Pete rocket to mark. We had high explosive rockets for targets. We had illumination rockets, and we also had illumination flares that would punch out the back of a carrier on the wing instead of shooting out forward.
Okay. And you had the 30 mil, right?
And a full loaded gun, 1,150 rounds of combat mix, which is defined by the theater. So I think our combat mix at the time was target practice rounds and high explosive incendiary. We didn't use any high explosive, or we didn't use any armor piercing incendiary, which is the other. We didn't want to put any DU out. So
okay. All right. So before we get to one of your like gnarly combat stories, I need you to tell me, can you just talk me through a standard engagement for you guys? Because for us, it was a really, as Apaches, it was very much like we could operate in a really narrow space. I know you guys can too, but I would just like to hear, how do you get set up? How far out do you have to be? How do you engage? What is that like for you guys?
Yeah. So difference between Apache, call for fire, kind of a 5-line type of deal, and the Air Force A-10 9-line, close air support, call for fire format. A little bit more data required. So that 5-line you guys are using is friendly position marked by target location, marked by any remarks restrictions. At my command, whatever, and you're ready to go. You go, okay, I see your place. I see the bad guy. I'm ready to go up and in. He says, you're clear to engage, and you go, boom, and it's done. You're down there. You're seeing it. It's a lot of eyeballs. You're not necessarily plugging things into the system.
Yep.
A-10 world, A model 2005 is a different discussion. It's completely different to answer your question in 2005 than it is now.
Interesting. Yeah.
So to give you a framework, the 2005 answer, if I get a task and I show up to a location with a JTAC on the ground, it's average, you're doing all right if you go report in on the radio to weapons on target in 10 minutes. That's the A model. Now, 2020, C model plus, helmet mounted queuing, full data link, If you are not putting bombs on target 30 seconds from the time you show up, you're fucking up.
Get out. Really?
Yeah. Because with my helmet mounted queuing, if anybody's on station already, we got a data link, I pull that data and I can use my eyepiece. I go, I'm looking at the AO. Okay, that's my target. That's where the JTAC is. And I can see it through my eyepiece from 100 miles away. So I'm building my SA as I go.
Yeah.
And I can talk on the radio and I can do things digitally and get ready to go. I know where the target is. I know where the friendlies are. I can look at it on my moving map, get SA on where I need to do for my run-in. So talking through the 2005 version of the answer is, so fundamentals, the target drives your weapon. So the JTAC and you are going to have a discussion on, this is the type of target that I have. I think there's 6 bad guys inside a mud hut. So I can't use my gun to get inside the mud hut. I need to use a bomb. Okay, so that the target drives the weapon. And then the threat drives the tactics. So in Afghanistan, the threat's always very low. So we can do any sort of approach angles or repeated approach angles without having high risk to having my number 2 man getting shot down. So, I mean, I could probably give you an answer on this thing for 2 hours, but I've got to truncate some things. There's so many different things that go into how you set your attacks up, how you set up your geometry, what you're doing in your airplane. So a couple more words on the setup. You're talking to a guy on the ground with the radio. He says, hey, I've got this target for you, and it's going to be the 9-line format. So IP to target 1 through 3 is usually NA for Afghanistan because you're in the overhead. There's low threat. You're established overhead. So you're getting a grid that you plug into your system. And then in the A model 2005, you got a grease pencil and a big old packet of maps. There's like 4 sections of maps this thick on the dash in the A model in Afghanistan to get down to a 1 to 50 size map. Get your grease pencil out, mark where the friendlies are, mark where the target plots that he just gave you that. And doing this, flying the airplane, using 4 different radios, getting grease on your map, and getting ready to attack and talk to your wingman and get this geometry figured out. It's a lot of work, heavy workload in the Hawg, especially 05. So we figured out where the friendlies are, where the nearest friendlies are to this target. We've got the target description done. We're going to do a correlation. So the guy on the ground is going to say, okay, call contact, which means I can see a main north-south running road with our fob on the east side. Okay, I'm contacting your fob. I'm contacting the big road. Call the distance from the north end of the fob to the south end of the fob, 1 unit of measure. Okay, contact your unit of measure. Go 2 units of measure west of the main MSR, starting from the south end of the fob. Okay, tell me what you see. I see a mud hut with, it looks like 2 buildings inside, or a kalat, they say. Yep. It's like a walled off compound with 2 buildings inside. And all right, so that compound has your target in it. The target is going to be the northwest corner of the compound. That 1 building, it's a square building, single story. Call contact. Contact a single story. What do you see on the south side of that building? I see a cart. Okay, that's your target. Tally target. So now we're ready to go. I know what the target is. I know where it is. I know where the friendlies are. Now I'm talking to my wingman. I'm not talking to the JTAC for a second. I'm like, okay, this is going to be shooter cover, GB38, in from the south, off west, or in from the south, back to the wheel. And that's the brief I'm going to give to. He's going to be providing cover, looking for anybody shooting at me as I do my pass. If it's a diving delivery. For a GB38, we generally do a level, stay out of the threat. So that's kind of some. So
the diving delivery. So when we would like bump up, come in, and have an attack angle, how would you guys do it? Like I assume you'd have to be pretty steep to get eyes on based on the way the cockpit looks.
We have the ability to do anywhere from 3-degree dive on low angle strafe, long range strafe type of stuff, to all the way up to 60 high angle strafe, 60 degrees nose low. And those are used for different reasons. So if you need to get, for example, a high incidence angle for your weapon impact on a tank, if we're doing armor-piercing incendiary bullets, you don't want to shoot the side of the tank because that's got really thick armor. You want to shoot the top of it, so you do a 60-degree dive. Usually we're doing 30s. They're kind of the bread and butter.
Got it.
The 30-degree dive. And that just gets you efficiently from your holding altitude. You want to hold at an altitude that's efficient for your engine so you can stay for a couple hours. If you're all the way down to 500 feet the whole time, you're cutting 45 minutes to an hour off your playtime. So you want to be up in the mid-teens, low 20s for hogs. And then you can set up a attack from that altitude and do a 30-degree dive bomb or a level. It's even more efficient to just fly over the target, drop the bomb, and stay at your altitude. But if you're doing strafing, you're going to be doing diving.
In 2005, 10 minutes to from contact to, round on target. Is the re-attack pretty quick then?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just that initial setup takes a long time.
Setup. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh shit.
And really it's because we were so emphatic about knowing where the friendlies are. And that was such a hard thing to do in Afghanistan because we had embedded Afghan forces with our U.S. forces. So that communication game, trying to figure out where all the good guys are before we start shooting, is a challenge.
Yeah. So take me to some of these gnarly engagements that you had.
Okay. Let's see here. I wrote a few of them down just to jog my memory here. Okay. Winter 2005, southern Afghanistan, a little bit northwest of Kabul. We're based out of Bagram, so it's a long drive for us to get there. A convoy has been ambushed. They hit a improvised explosive device on the road. One of their vehicles is disabled, can't move, and they've got a casualty they need to evac. This is one of my first dozen or so missions, I think it is. I hadn't fired anything yet. I hadn't shot any weapons, hadn't fired the gun, hadn't shot any rockets, nothing. And so things they were still getting shot at. By the time we got there, they were still under fire, and we're seeing RPGs ricochet off the dirt and stuff, and we're seeing their muzzle flashes and stuff going on. We're down there trying to do shows of force, so just, hey, we're here, show the presence, and it didn't stop the fighting at that point. So I'm the wingman here, and my flight lead says, okay, get ready for dropping a bomb. We've got the JTAC gives us a fighting position up on the mountaintop that he wants us to drop a GB-12 on. So it's laser guided bomb. It's going to be Buddy Lays, my flight lead's laser, my bomb. The previous time that I dropped bombs on a targeting pod lased attack was in training, learning the targeting pod using this up, down, down, left, right, BA, select, start bullshit. And I dropped on the wrong target with my practice bombs. I was looking at one thing in my system and in my HUD, and the targeting pod was looking at my target. So this being a bolt-on setup, it didn't tell me that I'm looking at two different things. And so I drop on my HUD symbology when I'm looking in the camera at my target, and it drops down to 0 seconds and nothing happens to my target.
Oh, man.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is training. This is like the week before I went and deployed.
Dude.
So the last time I dropped something, I fucked up and I dropped on.
You're feeling good right now in combat for real.
I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So, all right, it's time for me to do this right. So boom, boom, boom. I figured it out. I did my homework after that. I knew what I was doing, but I was still like, fuck, last time I did this, I dropped on the wrong thing. So I know I'm not going to do that. I checked 3 times. Make sure. So super nervous about it. drop that bomb and it hits perfect. And so this is happening over 5-10 minutes or whatever, that I'm going through this attack, and then they get hit with something else again, and they're like, we need to get that helicopter rescue here now. They're thinking that they're going to be able to reconsolidate, get the guys into the cars and push through. But then they're like, okay, we got another guy that's injured that needs medevac. So I end up getting on the radio and calling a helicopter and get the helicopter out there. And then we provide support for the helicopter. So I'm not really describing it very well, but that was a very emotional situation for me too, because now I'm hearing about the guys that are getting shot up. Yeah. And the only thing I can do, we can't go shoot because we can't see the bad guys, and all the Afghan friendly forces have scattered to the winds. So the only thing that we could shoot was this thing way up on a hilltop, and it has no effect. So finally, after enough shows of force and kind of throwing rockets down, my flight lead's throwing rockets down to kind of suppress these guys, they stop shooting at them. They break contact. But now I'm escorting this helicopter in, and I'm hearing the radio chatter about how bad the guy's hurt, and they take a couple guys to the hospital, and one of the guys didn't make it, one of the guys did. So it kind of turned into a very memorable mission for me. First time to drop something, and first time seeing casualties of war, kind of on my watch, I guess.
And hearing the stuff on the radio is tough the first time, not like any time, but just the commotion and guys who are so close to that action and not when you can't. I've definitely been in that situation where it's hectic on the ground and they're so close to the enemy that you can't, even when we could see them, we couldn't put rounds on because it's too fluid and you just feel helpless.
Yeah. It's tough, man. And that's the only thing that is redeeming about all the time I spent in Afghanistan is that a lot of times we were able to break contact and help the guys on the ground, regardless of what I feel like, should we be there or not.
Yeah. Right. No, I hear you. Okay. So that was your first engagement then, basically. Yeah. And it worked. You put a round on target. You're still the junior. You said like you got your lead. You're still the wingman. All right. So hit me with another one.
All right. Let's see here. Somehow, this one was crazy. This was, I'm older, I'm a major. This is my fourth deployment, 2014. I'm a singleton deployed to the wing staff at Bagram, Afghanistan. So I am plans, programs at wing headquarters at Bagram. But I'm flying a few times a week with the deployed A-10 unit there, the 303rd out of Kansas City. These guys are awesome. They're just the best. Bunch of good guys. And that's the source of that video that I referenced for you earlier.
Yep.
The Save the A-10 video. So I'm flying with these guys. I'm the flight lead. We've got a convoy escort going on out of a larger fob just south of Kabul. And they're going into the area that I call the Dragon's Back. So there's some mountains out there that kind of resemble a dragon. So there's a road that's just south of the Dragon's Back going in and out of town. There's notoriously got bad guys around there. So they end up taking fire. And we're the only guys around. There's two Sheppard A-10s. I'm the flight lead. And they start screaming on the radio. We're getting shot at two different angles. We do our 9 line. We get set up. And I'm like, okay, there's some confusion on where good guys and bad guys are. I'm confident enough to set down a Willie Pete mark. I'm going to put a rocket down. I want you to give me a correction off this Willie Pete. So, hey, wingman, our fighter to fighter is going to be trail shooters, gun, a rocket, gun. I'll be marking. You need to listen up for your correction, and it's in from the east, off north. Friendlies are to the south and to the east.
So Vince, is that, if I understand, your lead, you're going to mark with a Willie Pete round, and then your wingman's going to come in and adjust off of that based on what he hears from the ground. Okay.
Yep. So I throw the rocket down, and he's like, "Yeah, man, hit that mark, that's perfect." And so number 2 rolls in and pulls the trigger, and so in the A-10 you've got a 2 detent trigger. There's pack 1, pack 2. A pack means precision attitude control. So you fly your airplane in, put the nose on what you want to hit. You hit the first detent, and a system stabilizes the flight controls so that it keeps that HUD target, that gun cross, on the piece of thing that's underneath it. Within reason, you can kind of adjust it with rudders a little bit. You can kind of move it a little bit to adjust your fire. But pack 1, and then as soon as he goes to pack 2, something breaks in his airplane, and pack destroys itself. He loses his stability augmenting system, and the bullets go fucking everywhere. I mean, we are danger close, troops in contact right now, and his bullets just fucking go everywhere. And I'm like, dude, let's hear a radio call. Come on, man. And like, the longest 15 seconds of my life.
Just wanting to hear everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The radio comes back, good hits. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, 2, climb high, get out of here. You're done. He's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with my airplane. I'm like, you're broke. You know, he gives me 2 or 3 radio calls, and I'm like, okay, climb up, go home, get out of here. I don't want you to crash this airplane because it's starting to do all kinds of funky, weird stuff. He's losing displays. And so he had a mechanical and electrical, kind of a compound emergency, which is super rare, that was initiated by a gun run, and the troops in contact, danger close. Fuck. So it's me, alone and unafraid, for the rest of this. And so I'm doing reattacks. I'm getting updates. They are moving. They're trying to break contact. And so I end up doing 5 or 6 by myself. Nobody's covering, strafe runs to try to get these guys to be able to move south and break contact. And the one, man, I was so fortunate to have kept my mind straight with, we did 2 iterations of marking where I should shoot. One of them, they were from 2 different sources. So we had a JTAC talking to a guy who had one of those M16 launchers that he could throw smoke out of or whatever. And then there was another guy that was going to throw smoke, but he was going to do it from his hand. So the first one, they shoot a smoke mark out and say, hit the smoke. So I do a strafe run, and it's pretty clear on this one that I'm rolling in and I'm doing a strafe run on the mark and north. So I do it, good to go. The next time around, they're still moving. I'm trying to update my SA on where the friendlies are, keep doing the radio calls, figure out where they're taking shots from. And okay, next guy's going to mark with yellow. And so I roll in on yellow smoke, and I'm ready to pull the trigger, and I go, nope. And I'm glad I did, because I said, confirm that yellow smoke is the enemy or the friendly, because it was in a different place than I expected. I'm like, nope, not shooting that. Great. The JTAC said, shoot it. And I'm like, nope, let's talk again. Ask that guy if he's marking his position or the enemy. And he came back and said, it's his.
Oh my God, man. So it just didn't feel right. You could just sense it.
Yeah. And so that was pretty stressful. But luckily,
in that scenario, are you using the advanced optics that you described?
Well, in that scenario, it's so fluid that there's no other players that are following this and sending out data link data. So this is back to my eyeballs and radios.
It's old school.
So once we kicked it off and we had the initial laydown set up, and we didn't have much of a timeline to get the initial laydown put into digital, anyways, because it was pretty quick to them getting into contact. So.
Dang.
Yeah, I was happy to have been successful. And then I'm getting called, like, hey, I'm running low on gas. ops sends me a message over the data link and says, hey, the weather's going below minimums over here. And I'm like, so I stayed a little longer, a couple F-16s check on, and by this time they're not taking fire anymore. So I think I spent 850 rounds or something, multiple passes.
How long were you on
guns? What's that?
How long were you on station for something like that? Is it it goes quick?
Man, I can't even remember how long that was. It does go very quick. I mean, I think it was probably an hour that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And it probably felt like about 5 minutes.
Exactly. Oh, man.
And then I'm super amped up. The F-16s check on. I give them a hasty handover because I'm already below my gas. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to have Kandahar divert fuel, and I'm like, I'm 400 pounds below Kandahar divert. But nobody else is here. I'm not going to leave these guys.
Yeah.
So
that's such a hard call. Oh my God. Yeah.
So I go up and land, and I got so much extra gas. I'm like, I could have been there. The weather was fine. I could see the field from 30 miles away. I'm like, I could have stayed for another 20 minutes. But anyways, nobody got hurt. They stopped firing at them, and it was overall successful. So,
jeez,
pretty intense though.
Yeah. Was that? Is it rare to have an A-10 stay on station solo?
Yes. Yeah.
Usually, I would imagine
it's two at a time is the normal.
So was that just like a game time
decision? Home. What's that?
Was that just a game time decision on your part, or did you have to get authorization to do that?
No, I didn't get authorization. That is pretty clear that you got to do what you got to do when you got the troops in contact thing going on. And yeah, if it's nothing going on, it's a boring day. These guys are just, lounging around. Yeah, I'll probably go home with the guy. But since there's action happening, I need to stay there.
Damn. Yeah. All right. Vince, if you got another one, I'd love to hear it. But if not, I got other questions for you.
Let's go with other questions. I love
this, man. I could hear this all day. We did a couple. We were in a couple fights with some A-10s there, and it was always really impressive to see. It was always daytime. I don't know how often you were doing shots at night, but we tended to see you guys during the day when I was over in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I interviewed a guy, JTAC Wes Bryant, who he was saying within the JTAC community, it was the last question I asked him was, hey, as a JTAC, when you get on state, you're there, if you could get any bird that you want, what do you want? And he's like, always an A-10.
Yeah.
Just that's what we want.
Yeah. Cool, man.
So was there anything that you took with you in combat that had sentimental or superstitious value to you that you always had to have with you in a flight?
Yes. In fact, I brought a flag with me on every mission. On the airplane with me, I had a flag for my daughter, Vivian, who's 10 years old next month. So, yeah.
Same flag each time?
Yeah. It was the last two deployments. I kept that flag for her. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, and I got it mounted into a shadow box and a little certificate and all this stuff. So I'm actually going to give that to her for her 10th birthday.
Sweet. All right. No, that's cool. So, do you envision? I know how dangerous flying is, but do you envision talking to Vivian, for instance, about a similar career that you would have?
I am wide open with what the kids' desires are. I know there's good and bad wherever you're at. I think there is massive benefits being in a fighter pilot community or aviation community because you're around such great people. There are top of the line people in Air Force aviation, period. There's a bunch of careerists. Yeah. But if you know who you are and you don't need to do that careerist thing, then that's fine. You don't have to shun the careerists, Yep. They still are very high functioning, college graduated, probably a master or a PhD, and are intelligent and can make you a better person just by being around that group of people versus if you, I mean, it's a good path.
Yeah.
And it's great people. So I would not discourage it, but I would make her aware of some of the challenges. And I think, man, especially for a girl, Air Force Academy is a good place to be from, not a good place to be. It's got a lot of psychological challenges, and if you're emotionally not prepared for it, it can really be a bad thing for some females, especially.
Yeah. Actually, on that point, I mean, you mentioned the was it the commanding officer for your first unit?
Yeah.
Was a female A-10 pilot?
Yep.
How rare was that at the time?
Man, I think she was like, she was the very first squadron commander fighter female. Fighter squadron commander that flew in combat as a female.
Yeah.
So
first.
Not many.
Yeah. Gosh.
Not many.
What was that like at the time? If you're open to talking about it, I'm just curious how, I mean, that is an intense alpha male community for the most part.
Yeah.
And here you are in combat and you've got clearly an accomplished leader who's a senator now, right? So what was that like?
It's an interesting thought, man. There was a lot of people that were really pissed off that she was there. I mean, there's kind of it's a divisive, her call sign's Wedge. Drives a wedge because you got people who are a supporter and people that are angry that she's there. Yeah. And so I was always a big supporter. I mean, I still am. I think she's been unjustly vilified on a lot of stuff that is gender based, and it's that old the old bro network style of fear, ridicule, and sarcasm that isn't necessarily the best way to go about doing things in a professional organization, that put a lot of the people on the side of vilifying her, in my opinion. I think these days it's more of we've got more shades of meritocracy versus some arbitrary delineator like gender. She wasn't the very best pilot. She made some mistakes that were very visible, and that kind of helped the detractors pile on, so whatever. She was the best squadron commander I'd had up to that point, and she spent I think 2 years, if not more, tracking down and making sure that each of us was given the appropriate medals and things and decorations that were put in for us. So I got an out of the blue call from her 2 years after our deployment saying, "Did you get all your air medals?"
No way.
I think so.
That's cool.
She goes, "Did you get the single sortie air medal?" I'm like, I don't know. I didn't look. I didn't read them. So I actually was missing one that just fell through the cracks. It never happened, but she did everything she could from her point of view to follow up and make sure that what her responsibility was taken care of.
Got it.
I got lots of respect for her on that.
Yeah. So I have 3 boys. The oldest is 13. I got an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay.
The oldest is into flying, man. So how? And I'm just a helicopter pilot, and it's been a long time.
Well, what is a helicopter pilot? You're still a pilot.
That's right. Thank you. What is the best way to get them start? Like, what's the right age to start? Because it sounds like you went in after the academy, right, to start flying.
Yep.
If you could do it again, where would you start out? At what age and what type of experience?
I've seen good and bad. I've been an instructor at multiple different levels through the Air Force setup. I've seen guys who start from scratch just like me after college and have done nothing with airplanes until they start with the Air Force training and do very well. They do great. They're fine. I've seen people that start there and don't do well. And then I've seen people who have been with private pilot license for 6 years before they start within the Air Force. And it's a huge detriment because they already know it all. They learned it all, and they can't be taught. They know. And then there's guys that have done it for a long time that allow themselves to augment their knowledge and move to the new way of doing it. Air Force does things fucking weird compared to civilians. So be flexible and accept how the Air Force does it versus, getting butthurt about how it's being done different and I know better.
Right.
So I don't think there is an advantage either way. It depends on the personality of the person if they're going to be successful within whatever exists, in however many years your kids are coming up. I don't know what's going to look like. We're starting UPT 2.0 now. So that's a lot of virtual reality stuff, 3D goggles and weird stuff going on. So
yeah,
I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what would set you up for an advantage in trying to be successful within that program because it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I hear you. So last question for you here is, and I think I know the answer to this, but I ask everybody, like kind of going back to the days you were watching Top Gun and you lose, this difficult moment with your brother pursuing this path and all of the pain and psychological hardship you go through, 4 combat deployments, 1,300 hours. Would you go back and do it all again?
I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing. Not one bit. Like I said earlier, my pathway was better than I could have scripted it. I couldn't have asked for more. I've been able to do things, reach the pinnacle of the respected aviation world is flying combat in the A-10, right? I mean, that's, if you look around the internet, that's what people will go click anything that has A-10 on YouTube. They want to watch the strafe videos or whatever. And I'm like, I'm just completely baffled that I was able to be a part of it. Just this random stroke of luck, this chance that, I was a part of it and fit well and, became a part of it for a period of time. So yeah, I wouldn't change a thing, man.
And I lied because I have to ask you this one other thing that I read online. You can correct me if not, but there's some story about a picture that you took while flying.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we can end on that because it's one of the best stories I've read. And if it's true, I would love to hear it.
Yes. Okay. So, man, so many folds in this story anymore. The guy that took the picture has died of PTSD. So he's a great buddy of mine. I gave a flag to his mom at his funeral at the Air Force Academy Cemetery. So this story means so much to me in so many different ways. It's a great belly laugh story in its origins. And so many of my close friends and stuff have been able to be a part of it. And so Clyde, you motherfucker, we're flying our first deployment return sorties. So it takes a week and a half to fly A-10s all the way across the globe to get back to Tucson from Afghanistan. And we're following a tanker. We're going 250 miles an hour, 275, I think, between 250 and 275. And the tanker's just going, fuck you guys. Come on, let's go faster. But we can't. So we got hours and hours and hours. And about hour 5 on our first leg out of Afghanistan, I'm like, all right, hey, lead, I'm going to go out to the left next to Clyde. He's like, okay, whatever, just don't get lost. So the next 30 minutes, I start unbuckling everything. I take off my harness. I take off my G suit. I get my the flight suit down, and I start creeping up next to Clyde on the left side. And I go, hey, man. So I'm on my desk chair here. I'm going to reenact this on my desk chair because there's not a lot of room inside the cockpit. But so I was able to get up and do this and then kind of do that. But I didn't have nothing on. So I was looking at the south end of an unneutered bulldog. And he snapped a picture of it. And it's one of my favorite shots.
What range was he at?
Wasting time, man.
What range was he at when he takes this picture?
We were probably, I was probably a couple 100 feet away from it. I didn't want to. I mean, the autopilot is not good. Like you hit the stick a little bit, autopilot goes ding, and airplane goes where it wants to go. So I had to be really careful. I didn't want to get too close and run into him because I was going to be looking the other way for a while. So yeah, you gotta have fun, man. If you're not having fun, you're not fucking doing it right, man. You know. And all these guys get so damn serious, especially in this killing people and blowing shit up business. Don't take yourself too seriously. Go out there, have some fun. And my last assignment, the dudes out on the line that did the maintenance, they used to call me the woo guy because I'd get out and I'd go out there and go, woo! Because I was so fired up that I get to go fly a jet again one more time. Here we go.
Yeah.
So always living good. Enjoy it.
That is awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for the time, Vince. This is great experience. Thank you.
I enjoyed it myself.
I hope you enjoyed this combat story. If you want to tell your own story, go to combatstory.com. If you know someone we should interview, send me their info at ryan@combatstory.com. Hearing these stories can be tough or bring back your own memories. If you're battling PTSD, please call the Veteran Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. 273-8255. Stay safe.